Hi, welcome to this channel on magnetic energy, technology principles, applications. This video is about why advanced alien civilizations don't use electricity the way we do. Of course, this is highly unconventional information, if you haven't figured that out already. And like all these videos, this is based on our own technology, our own experimentation, information that we get from black ops programs or top secret labs around the world. And then as well as other dimensional higher being information. So you could say, well, how do you know what other aliens use? Well, because we actually had aliens tell us. Now that sounds completely crazy and ludicrous, but if you ever use any of this technology, you have a very high probability of having the same thing happen to you because it sends out signals throughout the universe. They detect it, they immediately are on it, they want to see who's working with it, what's going on, and so it attracts a lot of attention. And so that's probably partly why we were given certain bits of information. And like I always talk about, going to the loony bin or the funny farm, or however you want to say it. So I think it's too late to go back on that. So anyway, so why don't they? In no particular order, it's just too slow. Electricity is just too slow for them to use, and meaning that they need to use technology. And so the focus here is going to be primarily what, if they're not using electricity, what are they using? They're using primarily what we would call in modern terminology, like neutrons and ions. Now, in their world, and even in the magnetic model world, it's usually supercharged ions or supercharged neutrons or conglomerations of those energetic structures or particles, as we would call them. And so they would form into like what we might call more like magnetrons, but different types of structures. And the foundation of those is typically some sort of neutral energy or ionic energy. And so that is definitely what they tend to use according to all the information that we've gathered from technology experiments, top secret bullshit, and everything else. So yeah, it's just simply too slow, because even if you're talking about EMFs and RFs and the propagation of electromagnetic frequencies and everything, we're still limited to light speed, and that's way too slow in the big picture of things. We need to go interdimensional, we need to be outside of space and time, we need to be able to have energy that propagates at a nearly infinite velocity, and so that's why we've got to go to other forms of energy. It's not versatile enough. That's a huge one, and I could go on way too long on that, but it's essentially like it's too disruptive to anti-gravity tech and force field tech. So I mean, we do have a lot of versatility, you could say, in our society with electricity because we use it for all kinds of stuff. But when it really comes down to the foundational properties of it and what it can do, it's just simply not even close to being versatile enough for advanced civilizations. And especially when you start moving into the anti-gravity world or the force field world, and it's really problematic with those technologies. It doesn't work well or travel well interdimensionally. It disrupts the etheric magnetic draw. That's really, really important. So when you think about this magnetic model, everything in the universe is interdimensional. So there's always energy coming and going from interdimensional processes through everything. And so the technology that they need and that we need ultimately as an advanced civilization, if we ever get there, is going to be very interdimensional in its nature, and electricity just is not compatible with that. It just doesn't work well or travel well interdimensionally. So like, for example, if you need to communicate to a ship or to other planets that are many light years away, electricity is simply not efficient enough, and so you have to go to like quantum magnetic signaling and quantum magnetic like basically pulse technology that is essentially outside of space and time. It's not compatible enough with biological life forms and biological evolution and advanced abilities. So electricity has some compatibility with our biological systems, but for the most part, too much exposure to it or too much integration with it is basically disease creating and disease causing, and that's a huge problem. So advanced life isn't even going to look at that anywhere close to even using something like that. It's also it really slows down and hampers biological evolution and advanced abilities. So like say if you want to like create paranormal abilities, I've talked about this in other videos, or like suits or technology that integrate with our biology to give us advanced abilities of all kinds, electricity just doesn't work well with the biological system. And so we've got to go to something more neutral and more ionic to really integrate well with biology. And that's with other biological life forms across the board, apparently, as well. It's just, electricity is just not powerful enough. And that's really true. So when you go into magnetic technology and pulsing neutral magnetic technology and ionic technology, we can get to power levels that are so far beyond what electricity is capable of. And that's really important for like larger ships or for like floating cities, anti-gravity stuff, force field technology. And it's just, electricity is just too limiting. It doesn't work well with strong pulsing neutral magnetic fields. That's really true. So if you are on a ship that is magnetically or etherically powered, and that's going to have as its base what we would call the neutrons and the ions and everything, electricity stops working in that environment. When you have strong pulsing neutral magnetic fields, it really hampers electricity. It really makes all like conventional electrical technology stop working in those fields. They're completely incompatible with it. It's too limited for long distance communication. That's really true. So, and I just kind of talked about that, but there's so much more to that. It's not just long distance communication, it's long distance detection and analysis. It's too limiting for all of those processes. And anything that has to do with distance, where you have to be beyond space and time, and you need like quantum entanglement and everything, it's just too limiting for that. It doesn't interface with biology and consciousness very well. So this is an important part of the evolution of technology that will happen in hopefully in our society, and that has happened in countless societies across the cosmos. Your technology ends up interfacing with your consciousness, so that you end up running your technology through conscious interaction and conscious intention and conscious decision making. And electricity just does not work well with that. And so you need something that can attract consciousness into the technology, and that consciousness is fully integrating with. And so it's got to be etheric magnetic technology that is kind of outside of our dimension, and electricity and electrons just do not respond well to that. The electrons are not a free, inexhaustible source of power across the universe. They're just simply not free, and they're not inexhaustible. It's kind of like Tesla used to say, there are no free electrons in the etheric field. And that's absolutely true according to our research and everyone else that researches this around the world. Electrons are not free etherically, and so they're not an inexhaustible source. There's always a price that you pay when you use electrons, and that price is too high, and especially when it comes to interdimensional travel, it's just not feasible. It does not interface good enough with like crystal technology, quasi-crystal technology, and neutral alloy technology. So all of those types of technology, like, so if we want a wireless grid of like crystals around the world that power everything and that people keep on their person, they're being powered, electrical technology does not interface with those well. It's just not compatible with powering crystals and powering quasi-crystal materials. And then basically the neutral based alloy that receives like neutral etheric magnetic energy doesn't really recognize electrons. It doesn't really work with them. It's not compatible with them. It won't attract them. It can't record them. And so that's really important as you move into a crystal based society. The electrical technology as we use it today is completely incompatible with that. It's just too susceptible to disruption from natural fields and natural processes. So this has to do like with some things, like there's really intense fields that are out around and in space and outside, like at the edge of our solar system and in various areas. And then solar radiation, solar storms, CMEs, and all these things. Eventually societies recognize that electrical technology has tremendous limitations when it comes to some intense fields, and so you really can't take the risk of, say, interdimensional travel with electrical based technology that could get wiped out if any type of solar radiation, and it could even be from like stellar experiences, stellar events that release a tremendous amount of radiation and solar things, the electrical technology just will not happen. It will be fried in those events and in those types of fields. And they're quite common, they're all over the place. And so you need serious radiation shielding technology and force field technology that has to be like etherically, magnetically based from like neutron ion technology. So it doesn't work on attraction very well. It's difficult to have like electrical based technology and attraction technology to attract those fields over long distances. It's very difficult because we need them to go interdimensional, and to put like, say for example, electrical fields like into a vortice that then goes interdimensional, and you are attracting it across space and time. That's a very, very difficult process, and it creates all kinds of problems. It's terrible at long range detection because it's partly because it's unidirectional. So let's say you have the ability to send electrical signals out, and and it could just be EMFs or RFs or whatever it is, and you have the ability to send them out. Electrical signaling, like signaling that's based on electrical technology, doesn't automatically create a return path like the magnetic signaling does. So it's already polarized too much, so it's very difficult to have a return path on it that you can then encode with signaling to see like exactly what you're looking at. So it's terrible for long range detection, and that's when it comes to interdimensional space travel and everything, you have to have incredible long range detection and interdimensional detection outside of space and time, and electricity just doesn't do that. It's not compatible with the formulation, reformulation, and deformulation of matter. So it really disrupts all three of those processes. So then when you move into a society that is going to become etherically based, like with your products and your services, and you want to remove all pollution from your system, or you want to duplicate products, like replicate products, or you want to create, if you want to, products out of the etheric magnetic field, or redistribute them back into the etheric magnetic field, essentially it looks like you're destroying them, you're not. It's totally incompatible with all those processes. It actually disrupts and hampers all those processes. It doesn't work well with overlapping systems. So you need to be able to have, like say for example on a ship, you need to be able to have your magnetic etheric circuits that create artificial gravity, and then within those you need to have multiple systems that are all working on different, like they're all working in different pulse rates and everything within that, and you can't have them disrupting each other. Electrical fields and electrical technology just does not do that well. There's too much wave propagation interference. There's too many like disruption of waves, and the waves that are like, if you're doing electrical waves or actual electrical current, it becomes very disruptive with all the technology, and it decreases the basically all the performance of the devices. And then they can also like run into shorts and different short circuiting, and then it just disrupts. So it's not really good at overlapping systems, and that's partly because it's so restricted to its environment, and it's just not interdimensional enough. It performs terribly in interstellar transportation. So as soon as your ship basically gets into an hyperdimensional state of existence where it's kind of blinking in and out of existence, it's drawing in a tremendous amount of etheric magnetic energy. There's pulse rates all over. Anything electrical in that field is really just fried and destroyed. So it's terrible in that type of environment. So it's, as a general rule from what we were given, the electricity, it's basically always phased out of society with a rise in consciousness. It's almost always across the board. Now there are specific like circumstances where it is still used, and I've talked about that in videos, how you resonate like conductors, and you use like what we would call cold electricity, which is much closer to like a magnetic current or an ionic current. And so there are definitely still uses for that type of electricity, but the way we use it today, like in our power grids and everything, as there's any type of ascension in consciousness, it's phased out of societies typically for all these reasons and more. And it across the galaxy, if you want, or across the universe, it's definitely like the stereotype of it, if you want to say that, is it's associated with ignorance, ignorance of consciousness, ignorance of science, ignorance of the universal processes and everything. So please send in any questions and comments on this, and other reasons why you think like advanced civilizations would no longer use electricity. And I will see you next time.